everybody, welcome back to another Guild Wars 2 build video. My name is Ultra Runner, and before we dive into the build, if you are new to the channel and you enjoy our content, please consider subscribing to the channel. We release new videos every week. Alright, let's get into the power Mirage sPvP build. I want to emphasize right off the bat that this build is geared towards newer players or players looking to better understand the Mesmer Mirage build. Without getting too deep into the weeds per se, Mesmer can get very complicated, and I feel it would be more beneficial to newer players if we discuss the basics of what makes Mirage a good PvP build and go from there. The purpose of this Mirage build is to be a major annoyance to the enemy team. How so, you may ask? Mesmers create clones and illusions, and with this build it's almost an endless amount of illusions, making it really difficult to lock onto you. Interrupts, many abilities that provide interrupts. Boon removal, often enough to where it actually makes a difference in the fight. Confusions, etc. At the end of the day, you are a major problem for the enemy team, and you are nearly, and I really mean this, nearly impossible to lock down if you're playing smart. The build has multiple break stuns, stealth opportunities, shadow steps that distort the enemy, making it really difficult to find the real Mirage. That's where this build shines, and if you play it that way, you will be nearly unkillable because the enemy can't lock you down long enough to do any harm. And on the flip side, you're providing huge benefits to your team by having multiple clones, illusions, shatters popping everywhere, basically creating chaos on the battlefield. Alright, what are we using for weapons? We are using the sword and torch on the back bar. These two are primarily for DPS and to get yourself out of dicey situations. As you can see, the torch provides stealth and burning, pretty heavy burning actually, along with confusion, half a second daze, and then the sword gives you the ability to summon illusions and blur, so you can evade all attacks. It's a pretty dynamic duo right here for DPS. And then on the other bar we have the staff, which is a huge utility weapon. A lot of things going on here, but drop Chaos Storm as often as possible. What this does basically is it provides boons for your team, and it really hinders the enemy team at the same time, confusing the enemy team, and it drops a daze on them for a second. Give yourself a little bit of chaos armor, that drops damage reduction, gives you some boons. Phantasmal Warlock, that's excellent. It summons illusions that deal damage and inflict vulnerability. That's huge. I usually start my fights with that. If you notice, it has a 4% incoming damage increase. As I'm fighting, I am hitting phased retreat often, which is creating even more confusion in the midst of the battle. And while all that is going on, I'm hitting mind wreck. Most of the time out of these shatters, I am usually hitting mind wreck. For mainly the reason is because of the damage. Look at the damage, 1950 on 3 clones. That's without critting. That's enormous damage, and it has a radius of 240. So if you are fighting multiple opponents, they are close to each other, you are doing massive amounts of damage with those shatters. So moving on to the utilities, we have signets everywhere. That's because in the profession part of the build, we have these enhanced, and these all synergize very nicely together. Signet of the Ether is a massive heal. It's almost 7k, and it heals you for every illusion that you put out. And as I mentioned earlier, this build is dropping illusions just about every other second, so you're constantly getting a little slow trickle of heals. That's great on top of the health that we have in this build. We have 28k, so that's a healthy health pool along with healing often because you're dropping those illusions all over the place. So Signet of the Inspiration, what this does, if you notice right here, this is going to drop swiftness for 4 seconds every 10 seconds, along with a random boon every 10 seconds. So that's what that's primarily doing, and if you hit this, if you have boons, it will extend those boons even longer. Signet of Domination, improved condition damage. That's great, but the reason that we have this utility here is for the stun. Signet of Midnight improves expertise, but the real benefit is blind. Blind nearby foes and stealth yourself for 2 seconds. If you really want to humiliate the enemy, turn them into a bird. That's an awesome ability. As soon as you turn them into a bird, they're there for 6 seconds. You can just start hammering away on them, and usually they're going to go down. All right, so let's talk about what we are wearing on our for our equipment. We are using Rune of Vampirism. That takes our health pool up about another 4,000 or so. So we're at 28,514. That's a pretty healthy spot to be in. And we're also using the Valkyrie amulet. Now, one thing I always say about sPvP, one of the best things you could do in sPvP is stay alive. If you're dead, you're not an asset to your team. So with a healthy pool, a lot of interrupts, a lot of illusions, you can take a few hits. You can take a pounding. You're not a wet, soaked paper bag that's just ready to get ripped to shreds. You can take a few hits and still stealth your way out, blink out of the way, and regroup, and you're going to be good to go. So that's the reason we have the Valkyrie and the Vampirism to give us a high health pool there. We're also using Exploitation. Now these right here, these are interchangeable. You can use whatever you want here. These are just personal preference for me. I'm using Exploitation, Escape, Exploitation, Escape. These are the 3 professions we are using in this build. Mirage, Inspiration, Chaos. Won't go too deep into them, but I will talk about a couple important ones. Down in Mirage, we are using number 3, 1, and 3. In Inspiration, we are using 1, 2. This is really important. Heal yourself and lose conditions when you use a shatter skill. So every time you use a shatter skill and you have 3 clones up, you're healing yourself for 1,078, along with healing yourself every time you bring a clone up, along with having this massive heal here every 30 seconds. You're going to be really difficult to take down. This is really important too, the signets. So every single signet that we're using is the improved version. Okay, Chaos, we're also using 1, 3, and 3. So this is the profession part of the build. Let me know what you guys think of this build. Go out there, try it. Again, this is really geared towards being an annoyance and a real benefit to your team. You're gonna see in the gameplay that I do include here, I go 19-0. Good amount of damage, good amount of healing, a good amount of boon uptime, interrupts, you name it. The illusions are everywhere, but it's a basic video to help you understand how to use this build in sPvP. So there you go, guys. That is the build video. Talk to you guys soon. Peace.